this week's episode, we have a chance to spend some time with Michael Alter. He and I talk business, basketball, and the life of Whyhakapa. Here's this week's episode. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you again. Michael Alter, how the heck are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. So what you don't know, and here's how I'm going to start. What you don't know is that when I got here, I was convinced that Whyhakapa was this little family congregation of people related to Michael Alter, right? Because it was you.
We have a lot.
You had a lot when I was here. What was it? How did you all get here? I mean, it was you, your
Well,
Ellen's sisters.
Ellen and I took the lead, so we definitely get credit. So I think when we moved up to the burbs, actually we did not belong to a congregation in the city, but when we moved up to the burbs, and we had two kids, just about to have the third, and we decided it was time. So we asked around, and I think we met through some friends. I don't remember exactly how. Rabbi Mikva, who was with Rabbi Marx. We met her through some friends who knew her, and that's how we ended up at Whyhakapa. And then once we got engaged, the rest followed.
But you knew Rabbi Marx from JCUA prior to that, no?
I didn't really know. I knew of him, and I was involved there. And, we had met, but I didn't really know him. Okay. Know him enough for that was really a big factor.
Okay, so it was to
that was kind of I would say that was sort of a nice coincidence.
Huh, good.
To be honest.
So here's my first question for you, because when I was growing up, well, that's true. This is my first official question.
Okay.
Michael, it's good to see you again.
Not to be difficult.
No, please be difficult. So when I was growing up, my father always had this vision that I was going to become a veterinarian, return to Youngstown, and take over his practice. There was no way in heaven that was going to take place in a lot of different levels.
Yeah.
So my first question was, what were you thinking?
Well, first of all, I thought you were from Columbus, not Youngstown.
No, I'm from Youngstown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, see, my father went to Ohio State. Everything in our household was scarlet and gray. That's another conversation.
Okay. Yeah, I just always thought you were a Columbus person.
No.
So what was I thinking? I wish my father was a veterinarian. Maybe that would have been kind of cool. No, I had, growing up, I knew nothing about what my father did and had zero interest in what my father did. So, and that continued for quite some time beyond growing up. I knew he has business, whatever that meant. I went to law school and I clerked for a year and practiced for a year. I knew I was going to be a lawyer. That was clear. But my dad always wanted me to go to business school. So I was a huge disappointment when I went to law school. I guess when
I want that for the record. Wait. Stop for the record here.
Yeah.
University of Chicago Law School was a disappointment.
Yes.
Love it. All right, go ahead.
Around the time I was finishing law school or just starting out, my dad asked me to sit in on meetings he was having, really estate planning kind of stuff. So I would, he wanted me to be the trustee, he wanted me to know enough I could do that. And that's kind of how he sucked me in. And then I started learning a little bit. But, what attracted me, I really knew nothing about real estate. I didn't really care a whole lot, to be honest with you, about business real estate. It's not what moved me. But I was very much attracted to the idea of kind of being this fiduciary of the family and being able to take care of everybody, make sure everybody was comfortable and that there was worst case scenario, some nest egg somewhere that people would be okay if things didn't work out in whatever path or career various family members had chosen. So that was really what attracted me initially to doing it. I knew I was going to be a lawyer, and I think it was 29, 30. We just had our first child, and so I figured, I'll try this. I'll see what it's like, and if I don't like it, I got plenty of time to go back and do something else. It won't be a big deal. I'll try it for a year or so. So that's kind of how I stumbled into it. It was very unintended, which you'll probably notice might be a theme of my life. Things that I stumble into.
Well, let me ask you then, 30 years later, looking back at that, you said it wasn't your passion. How do you feel about it now?
Only 29.
Okay. 29 years. How do you feel about it now?
Hard to believe. I'm really glad I did it. No,
Yeah.
it's first of all, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Not so much the substance. I mean, still to this day, I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it's true. So I do that. I know nothing about building a building, the nuts and bolts of the construction. I don't know a lot about design. I'm not really. It's just not what attracts me. But what I did like about the business was it was never dull. It's very multidimensional, a lot of different aspects to it. I like doing a lot of things, so that I don't think I have ADD, but I still have that need to be having always a lot of balls in the air. And so the business was like that, and I know a lot of, or at least a little about a lot of different things. Um, and I like managing a culture, building a culture, and managing people, and the responsibility of knowing that at our height we were probably 60, 70 people, whose livelihood and their families, sort of were dependent upon decisions that we were making, and that was kind of a petty thing, and that meaningful to me. So that was really what it's sort of the combination of all those things is what I enjoyed about it, and the challenge about building something that would last. And of course, then the family aspect to it was what got me in the first place. Was also always present.
So you're in this world, which is, the Wall Street Journal world. I'm going to call it that. I'm not saying you are,
Okay.
right? And one of the things that's always intrigued me about you, and what I've always appreciated about you, is that you're in that crowd and you're in a circle which tends to lean more conservative politically, more charity. And my impression of you has not been that. You don't lean conservative, and your work in the world is beyond the work of the altar or the altar group. It's about justice. So how do you navigate the world you are in, the world of real estate, the world of Fortune 500, whatever you are, what I mean by that, and still have that bend towards justice and good.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things on that. And that reminded me of something I wanted to say before about why I enjoyed doing it. Is it also afforded me, which I didn't have any notion of when I started, but it afforded me an opportunity to do all these other things that I wanted to do. Not that I knew at the time I did, but as I grew up, and as I so I had the flexibility, I had the financial stability, wherewithal to be able to go in any direction I wanted to go in, and so that was hugely important to me, and incredibly blessed and fortunate that I have that opportunity. In terms of the justice thing was there before. I grew up, and I think from my parents I got this, and there's no question it's a Jewish the Jewish notion of tikkun olam and social justice was part of my growing up. My father, who was a huge capitalist, his father was a socialist. He was
Really?
an immigrant and very much an active member of the Socialist Party in the U.S. He was a tailor and small little businessman, but he used to read, and I don't remember. My dad used to always tell me stories, but whatever the socialist newspaper was, that was their daily paper. My father went and ran away from the socialist day camp that he was sent to. And so it was definitely part of their values. And
Oh,
my
to be at
mom
their dinner table, at Thanksgiving. All
later
right,
in
go.
life.
Your
So
mom, I'm
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, my mom, I remember growing up, and this has all kind of come back to me now too, because I don't know if you saw the movie recently, the Conspiracy Seven, but the Chicago Seven, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
that talked about the trial there. So I was all 7 years old when that trial was going on, and I remember it vividly. And I was even at a young age very involved in following what was going on. And I remember watching the protests during the convention and following the trial. And I went with my mom and actually her good friend at the time was Marcia Emanuel and the Emanuel family to protest marches. I remember going to one with French Prime Minister Pompidou because they were selling arms to the Arabs, and that was a big thing. So we were my parents were very engaged, very active, and that became part of me from a very early age, and those values were instilled in me and were important to me. So when I through college, through law school, I was always involved in doing various sort of justice related things, and so again, when I got into the business, to me it wasn't like giving it up. If anything, it was giving me the ability to sort of amplify that and to be a capitalist, if you will, in a different sort of way, the way that I'd like to see more of in this country. Because I am a capitalist. I do believe in capitalism, but I think there's a lot wrong with it as well. That
what do you
needs to
mean?
be.
What do you mean that you believe in it?
I think in terms of not to get too deep into this, but in terms of a system for producing wealth, making life better for people, and it's proved as strong and viable as anything else out there to date. And I think as a result of that, there have been tremendous gains at society, not just America, but around the world in terms of health and well-being and living longer and health. All those things I think have come from innovation and entrepreneurship and not all of them, but many of them in capitalism. And so I think that's a good system, but I think our system has lots and lots of problems that need to be addressed. And as an entrepreneur, that allowed me, at least in my own world, to put some of those things in practice.
I think I'm about to sound like your father's father, but I'm not.
It's okay. Go
by
ahead.
asking though, here's the question.
I know what I'm getting myself into.
No, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. So I'm just talking. So here's the challenge, right? The challenge for me with something like that is the challenge with capitalism. And I'm not a socialist. I am. I lean towards. I don't even know where I am.
Okay.
Right. But you think it's a good system. And you have put so much of your life into helping people. We're going to talk about City Year, I hope, because I want to talk about that, and JCUA and the other places where you've found yourself. And at the same time, isn't there an acknowledgement that the capitalism that you were just praising so well, so highly, is the exact mechanism that keeps those people, I even hate to say it, that keeps people poor, that keeps people in need of then a charitable response?
No, I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, I think, like I said, I think the problem isn't capitalism per se, it's capitalists, it's people and the greed that develops. And now part of that is,
it's not Judaism, it's Jews. It's all the same, I know.
It's, I mean, look, the self-interest of what drives capitalism, certainly taken to extreme becomes, very, I think, very harmful and detrimental. But on the other hand, I do think it has created a world that we've all benefit from. And I'm not just talking about material things, but just our quality of life, that, you look back 20 years, 40, 50 years, and, people just didn't have that. And we're living much longer and healthier. I mean, even in the worst places on the world today are better off, than 30, 40 years ago. So, I mean, and a lot of that I do think is attributed to entrepreneurial innovation and those types of things. Now, again, I think there's so much terrible and evil that capitalism does create, and does create a lot of problems that. But I think they can be. I don't think getting rid of capitalism will make things better. I think making capitalism better will make things better.
Yeah, I mean, any pure system is purely flawed and leads to some kind of destructive behavior. So how do you find that medium, I would think? Yeah. So, and at the same time, as you were talking, I forgot my question. Oh, where did it go? Oh, heck. At the same time, the need to be charitable. I mean, isn't capitalism dependent then on charity, which is this is what I was going to ask, which is antithetical to notions of tikkun olam and the like that you were talking about in terms of a Jewish upbringing?
I don't see it that way. I don't think I think I'm not sure if I'm following on that one. I mean, I feel
because Judaism is about justice, not about charity. That's where it comes down at. And so go on.
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple things. I mean, I think in terms of justice, I mean, capitalism is neither just nor unjust in and of itself. It's those of us and how we what we do with it. I think so. I've have a strong sense of responsibility that I've always had to do more. I think the more I have, the more I feel I need to share that with those who don't have it for whatever reason, regardless of what it is. I think, I don't feel like, like some people do, that there's, that capitalism should replace government in terms of, taking care of people who are in need. I don't, there's only so much most philanthropic, most generous people do, and it'll look up government's role needs to be, in terms of providing basic services and taking care of basic needs of their citizens. So it's never a replacement for that.
Okay. So let me back up because I know your involvement in terms of first with the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs with the Associates Division, which you helped founded back in the 1990s, correct? Because it was right after I left there.
That was a long time ago, yep.
And then in the 2000s, first and foremost was City Year.
Yeah.
Is it still going, City Year?
Still going. 25th anniversary was 2 years ago.
Yeah. And how's it holding up during the pandemic? Tell us what exactly is it? Why'd you start it, and how's it holding up in the pandemic?
So I started Chicago, City Year in Chicago. Actually, City Year was started by my college roommates in Boston a couple of years before Chicago, and City Year is now in I don't even know now, probably 30 cities across the country. It's in a couple, South Africa and England and Ireland and a few other countries. And the notion of City Year when it started was really to a couple different things. But, we have a certain generation. Back when I was in college, we were compared to our those of us who grew up in the 60s who were, the activists and changing the world. And we were thought of as these, the selfish me generation who only thought about material things, making money and whatnot. And, we just didn't buy into that. And we thought all we needed to do was to challenge young people to serve, and they would embrace it and welcome it. So that was kind of the notion of doing a year of service, that everyone should do a year of service. That's the notion of City Year. The idea was to do it after high school. It just became a norm, much like it is in Israel when everyone serves. Try and create that as part of our culture. So that was really what started City Year, and it really became the model for what originally first Bush and then Clinton created AmeriCorps, which sort of institutionalized the notion of national service. City Year has been and continues to be the largest national service program in the country, but there's now many others, and it's still, some national service is still something I'm a big believer in, and I think actually today now more than ever, as our country is ever more divided. One of the beautiful things about something like City Year is it does bring diverse people together, which was also something. Now the division is all different ways, but really the military is one of the few institutions in our country that truly does that. We're so segregated, and not just racially, but in every which way. You probably, coming from Youngstown, you probably have a much better feel for that than a lot of people. And so again, other than the military, we don't get to know really and spend any time and interact with people who are different than us. So that was a big part of behind City Year. And then, there's so many unmet needs out there that having this incredible, powerful group of young people, idealistic and passionate, is sort of the distribution method, to really address some of these needs. It's something we've been trying to actually reinvigorate now with contract tracers, with all the healthcare needs. Is a great way, particularly when there's so much unemployment now with young people, to get them involved in service. And there's some stuff going on about that. But that's really when City Year started, way back when. It's right now, and for the last 15, 20 years, its focus has been on education exclusively, and working in the low-income schools in Chicago, really some of the poorest performing schools. And they serve as really peer mentors. And because, again, they're young, they're 17 to 24. They're not teachers. They're working with the teachers in the classroom, and they work with students who have been selected by teachers and principals who need extra assistance in schools, and they develop relationships with them. They work with them, tutoring, but more mentoring in addition. And so they're really able to connect with them in ways that teachers just can't, because they don't have the time and because of their age difference. And so that's been our focus, and it's been, the impact has been really tremendous in terms of helping those schools improve their performance, helping the students stay in school and complete their education. And it's also a great leadership development program for the core members, because their experiences are very transformative because of the reasons I already talked about, working with other people and they've never met before, and really learning what that's all about. And
what was it like having Lydia go through it?
And Daniel. Two of my
Daniel did too. I
favorite-
forgot Daniel did. Right.
It was fantastic. I mean, first of all, I learned a lot because it's great. I've been involved forever, but just to get feedback. I mean, everyone knows, parent knows, no one will be honest with you like your kids to tell you what's the experience like. So that was great. But, just seeing how they grew up and transformed themselves and how important it was to them, and their personal growth, their how it helped to change how they viewed the world. And, it was great. And it's still, very influential on both of them in terms of the career choices that they've made and the work that they're doing and how they're doing it, and the friendship that they developed while in city are some of their strongest friends to this day. Many of whom are also doing great work. I think that's another part of the city or notion, was to create this alumni of young Americans, wherever they end up, even those who end up as capitalists and doing whatever work they're doing, it's going to impact how they do their work and how they view the world.
Yeah. So it was your two roommates from college. You went to Harvard.
Yes.
So again, Harvard doesn't seem to be a hotbed of a college that, when I think of Harvard, I don't think of justice. And again, I understand these are my generalizations and these are my worldviews. It's not a college that, if I think of college where activists go, right, I think of Oberlin, I think of Vassar, I think of Wesleyan, I think of even, I hate to say this, I'm sorry, Yale to some extent. Was Harvard a hotbed of activism given in the 1980s at your time? How so?
No, yeah, there's actually quite, I mean, look, it's a big place. It's 2,000 students. So you're going to get, I mean, there's some, there's actually a congressman, Jamie Raskin, who's one of the most progressive.
Are you buddies with Jamie?
Used to be back
Okay.
in the day. Haven't seen him in a while, but he was very active on campus.
I saw him last year. I met him last year.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did. Yeah.
Yes. So he was kind of the campus radical.
I believe it.
And very active. And, there was quite a lot of it. I mean, I think with any university of that size, but Harvard's a pretty liberal place in general. Maybe not as active as some others, but certainly on the liberal side. And there's quite a lot that I think came out of there.
Did you play on the basketball team?
My freshman year, I did.
Oh yeah. How was that?
It was fun, but I got distracted. I had my girlfriend, now wife, who was an hour and a half away in Amherst, and I actually got involved in politics then. I started working on the presidential campaign. I actually worked for a Republican, John Anderson, if you remember, who ended up.
You worked for Anderson on the 80 campaign? You worked?
Yes, I did. So that kind of got me distracted, and I decided not to, and I started doing some justice stuff and some running a after school program in the community. So, just other things became more important.
So this love of basketball, not only did you give it to one of your children, right? Just one. I mean, Lydia and Nathan.
They all played.
Yeah. But Daniel's still.
Daniel more than others. He coached for several years.
He's not coaching currly.
No. No,
I know he coached in Jordan. We used to talk about it,
yes.
Which I thought was fantastic. Where did this love of basketball come from?
For me, again, it really was less. To me, basketball. I mean, I love playing. I guess I'm pretty competitive, but it changed. It changed my life in the sense. For me, that was my city year. That opened my world to people that I would have never met otherwise. So, the fact that basketball happens to be primarily, an African-American sport. A lot of people I played with were Black, and I started going to different neighborhoods and playing different places that I would have never been, and meeting people that I would never had the opportunity and pleasure to meet. So, it just opened my eyes to the world, and it introduced me to people, and it really also the notion of the sort of the transformative power that sports has, which I personally benefited from and saw how others did as well. And And then as I got older and read about other things, just how it's changed their society, so that's to me was really, I love playing. The truth of the matter is I'm not really a sports guy. When I'm on the court playing, I love it. But when I'm done playing, I'm done. I was never one of those guys until recently, who read the sports page, who watched Sports Center or watched, I never understood why people did that. That seemed like an enormous waste of time. If you want to watch the game, watch the game. But when it's over, watch other people tell you what you just want. I didn't. So I was not like that. I wasn't that. And so my love of the game was kind of limited to the pure sensation of playing in the moment. And then it kind of, then I was done.
So what did you said you spent a lot of time going to neighborhoods, meeting people you wouldn't have met. What did you learn from them?
Just, how different, their circumstances that they grew up in compared to where I am, their family, where they live, how they live, what their schools were like, just the challenges that people had that I didn't have, made me greatly appreciate the privilege that I grew up in, and the things that I just took for granted because when you don't know, you don't know. But it's one thing to read about it or see something on TV, but when you're actually out physically there and talking to people, it's just takes it to another level. So just learning about their lives and their struggles and their worlds and how they differ and how they're same, and is what I experienced.
So when Daniel was in 10th grade, we had the retreats. That year we had one of them up at it was Aurora College up in Wisconsin, and he was on the basketball team. Was he on the basketball team in 10th grade? Was he on the 10th grade basketball team?
Yes, sophomore year.
I thought so. So he challenged me to a game of horse, and I kicked his butt.
You beat him.
I beat him, and I got so incredibly lucky. And he thinks that actually no, it was all straight up. It was all straight up. And I got and he wanted to play me again, and I refused. And I will never again. I will never again. It's like when I got here. Rabbi Mark and I used to meet every week. And the first time I got here,
you guys used to play one-on-one a lot.
We played chess, and the first time I played him, I beat him, and I should have stopped there. He was so mad that for the next, I'm not exaggerating, 8 years, he literally kicked my butt. So, so you didn't have a love of, so you learned a lot on the court, you learned a lot, you liked playing, but off the court, you didn't really think about it. And yet you decided to go and participate in the formation of the WNBA.
Well, wasn't the formation of the WNBA, the formation of the Chicago team of the WNBA.
Yeah. So what was that about? Why?
So that was another stumble. Never, again, I wasn't really a sports fan. I never in a million years had any interest. I'm not one of these guys who grew up dreaming, wow, wouldn't it be great to own a sports team? Or no. Certainly not a women's sports team because when I was growing up, that just women's sports was still very embryonic. And frankly, I didn't give it any respect at all. And so never occurred to me. It was one of those, so I went to law school, as mentioned earlier, Adam Silver was a year behind me. He and I were friends, and, he ended up working at the NBA. He used to invite me all the time to go to NBA events. I never went because I didn't want to go. I didn't care about it. But Daniel, as he grew up and got older, I once, said, hey, I got this invitation, NBA All-Star game. I've been getting it for 10 years. I never go. So he was all thrilled. I mean, I think it was actually a birthday present or Hanukkah present or something. I don't know. But that was, so we went. So I went. Adam was there. He introduced me to some women who turned out to be professional basketball players because I had no idea there was a WNBA. And as I talked to them and learned about the league and what they're doing, and they're just unbelievably impressive, bright, articulate, passionate young people, it sort of triggered in me what I'd said earlier about this transformative power. I was really surprised that Chicago didn't have a team, being the great sports town that it is. And, Reinsdorf, the league grew out of the NBA. And so NBA teams were the ones who started. Reinsdorf didn't want to be part of it. And so it just seemed like something should happen, and somebody needed to do something to make sure there was a team in Chicago. And so Adam Silver said, we'd love to be in Chicago. Would you think about it? So one thing led to another, and I found myself being the owner of a WNBA team.
And how's that been for you?
Oh, it's been a lot. It's been exhausting and exhilarating and challenging. Very, we still don't make any money. It's been a very expensive endeavor. This past year has been a crazy year with the COVID and not being able to play, and players in a bubble, and very financially extremely difficult. But on the other hand, the women were amazing, and they've been taking the lead for the last few years and using their platform for social justice issues, and that has been really wonderful to see. And
they have been the league. They have been the league. Really, the women of the WNBA have been the forefront of using their position long before Colin Kaepernick did anything.
Yeah.
So it has been a really impressive part of it.
Yeah. So that and being able to see that and help that and work with them and has really been great. In fact, I just wrote my team a little note this morning, just kind of summarizing the election and just thanking them and telling them that they should really feel really proud about what they did, and the impact that it had, because the youth vote was way up and it was huge, particularly in the battleground states. And you'll never know exactly what these things. There are a lot of factors obviously that go into this, but there's no doubt that they played a big role.
Yeah, I was talking to Harvey I connected Harvey with Reverend Harris, from the church that we have the relationship with on the West Side, that we were hoping to bring some of the players on the West Side to do some kind of clinics, but it's been, of course, we can't because of COVID. So hopefully,
we'll definitely do that. That's easy.
Yeah. I remember the first game. I remember going to the first game of the Sky.
You were great. You got a Whyhakapa group out there.
Oh my God, it was awesome. And the energy in that place. And y'all lost by like 5 from what I remember, but people were applauding. It was a standing ovation. And the quality of team play, right? Which every time I watch the WNBA, the quality of team play is so, it's just so energizing in general.
No, it's great basketball. And I will tell you, too, about 15 years now, it's hard to believe. It's so much better now even than it was 15. I mean, it's the same with the NBA. I mean, the quality of players just getting bigger, better, faster. I don't know what the ceiling ever is going to be on these things, but it's just continually pushing itself. So we play at Wintrust Arena now. If we ever get back there, I don't think we'll be in there this summer, but maybe next year. That's a great new arena, and it's a fun place to be.
We'll get a Whyhakapa group to go to your first game back again.
We win now too. Back then when you went, we were terrible. We're an expansion team. It was awful.
So looking, so really, as the WNBA being that league that was really at the core of so many justice issues around women's rights, about African American rights, even about the LGBTQ community, there's been a lot of different issues that have been harnessed by the WNBA. My perception, for you. Take the virus out of it if you can. Maybe you can't. We just had the election. What to you is the one issue at the core of America right now, would you say?
I'll answer that, but I just realized I never answered your question about how City is dealing with the virus. So if you want, we can go back to that.
We'll go back to that. That's fine.
To me, there's kind of two, but they're very related. It's systemic institutional racism and inequality. So I think they're very intertwined. But to me, those are until we get those fixed, whatever that means.
What does it mean to you? What does it mean to get racial inequality and general inequality? What does that mean to you?
What is that?
Getting it fixed. Getting it fixed.
Or getting it fixed.
Getting it fixed.
So let's start with systematic racism. To me, a starting point, has to be with just acknowledging our history and what's going on. And I'm a big supporter of a truth reconciliation committee or something like that, some national conversation that we all partake in that really looks at our history and hopefully just kind of maybe a naive and stupid to be saying today in this after this election, but where people can try to get some consensus about what happened in our past and some recognition of what needs change going forward. But it's because right now it's so, even understanding our history, there's just such a disconnect in terms of what has actually happened. I mean, what people don't even know because no one ever taught them about, about how systemic racism was built into our system. Not, slavery, everyone kind of understands slavery, or at least knows about it, but, just, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, in terms of the financial, you can go back to capitalism and how, the markets were jury-rigged and everything to make it impossible for Black people to create any kind of wealth and any kind of equity or own homes and all those things we take for granted. So, that's to me is a starting point. I don't think that's a fix per se, but I think that everything kind of starts with that. And then, it's just, we got to all do everything we can to go after these various things, in every way, in any way we can, with, from telling the story, but changing the structures and the systems, which is very difficult to do for sure. And then creating new ones that, will provide, capital and provide expertise and opportunities for people of color to build businesses.
Do you subscribe to the idea of reparations?
I do, but I don't like the word, because not that I have any issue with the word, but I think it has too much baggage. I think part of, having this conversation is the language. And I think we want to use language that helps bring people in rather than push people out. So, the other, privilege is a word, again, I just don't, even racism. I mean, I think, it's not that I don't believe it. I totally believe it, but I just think as we talk to people, there's a lot of defenses that have been ingrained that are just as strong as our institutional racism. And I think, to try and get those defenses down a little bit, we have to use different words, different language. It's like defunding the police. I mean, that's not a helpful term. So yes, I do believe in the concept of taking measures to repair the damage that has been done over the decades, and I think there's a lot that could be done to do that, in terms of paying for education, paying for a house, paying for lots of things. So yes, I do believe in that.
So strange for me to be asking you this as rabbi here, right? And this is most of the people that I've been interviewing for the podcast don't show up much on a regular basis to Whyhakapa. So why are you still a member?
That's me.
No, why are you still? And I say that with love, and I'm not saying, I'm glad you are. I'd be devastated if you weren't. But why? Yeah, answer the question.
Yeah, no, I'll answer. So yeah, I mean, the question is more relevant now that our kids are grown up, because that was easy to answer at the time. It was important to us that our kids had a Jewish education, and which they did, and we're very grateful for that. Obviously, we're not particularly religious, and I'm also, this is now me, I'm not much of a joiner. I don't belong to anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't belong to a country club. I don't belong to any club. I don't like, I'm not a meeting person. So I don't go out much. So, this is probably an awful thing for me to say on your podcast to everybody, the membership of Whyhakapa.
That's why I asked.
I'm just not, my activism takes place in non-social sort of ways. I do what I do. And so why do we belong? We belong because, we think it's important that Whyhakapa continue to be around and be viable. So to the extent that, we continue to pay our dues and help support it, we're happy to do that. We're, what's the opposite of a freeloader? We're like, we take nothing or very little, and we provide. So, we feel like that's, we're contributing in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're happy to do that. We go to high holiday services. We like to do that. So that's, we're big fans of yours. So.
Oh, shucks. That's what I was looking for, because that's what I look for. So yeah, I mean, so it's a lead. That question was really a lead in, and the lead in is so Daniel's here. He's your oldest.
Yes.
Nathan is out on the West Coast pursuing music.
Yes.
Okay. And you've got Lydia on the East Coast.
No, she's back.
Oh, is she back? I thought she was going back to Boston. Is she here?
She was in Boston for a couple of years. She's
Okay.
back here. She's getting her MSW at Loyola.
Oh, good for her.
Loyola.
Good for her.
Yeah.
So this idea of, because you said it, right, is that you were able to hide behind, not, you didn't say hide, strong word, wrong word. It was a given that you were going to be involved in a community because of your children, right?
I wouldn't say it was a given because
I'm just whatever you said. I mean,
but
you
it was
said you
important.
want.
It was important to us.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Better way of saying it. And you guys were fairly engaged when they were involved. I mean, we had Shabbats in the home at your place. You participated. What did you hope to give to your children in terms of Judaism? And do you think you were successful?
Um, I think we were successful. Yes, I do think we were successful, just to varying degrees. I think what we wanted to give to them was, I think what we feel we have, which is the culture and the values, particularly the ones we believe in, on the social justice side and the engagement, and you know, more so than the religious side. And we wanted them to have the connection with our family heritage and legacy that goes back beyond our generation, but the previous generations, and then let them have the independence and the knowledge and that to decide how they want to integrate that or not in their own lives. And I think we've totally succeeded in the value side. Could not be more proud of our kids and their sort of who they are and what their basic values and what they believe in, and they're taking different ways and how they're expressing it, which is great. And I'm sure over their lives, that will continue to evolve. Mm-hmm. And who knows how they're going to raise their kids, and but however they do, and whatever religion, I'm not an institutional religion person in general, anyway, of any religion. By the way, I was going to be a religion major.
Really?
I was. Started out. Did you ever know Harvey Cox?
No.
The theologian at Harvard.
No.
He was progressed part of the liberation theology movement. Very active. You should read. I'm going to send you his, but you would really like brilliant guy. I'm surprised you have it right across. Anyway, so he was took his freshman seminar, and he's kind of a mentor. And anyway, I'm digressing, but but I've never been big on institutionalized religion myself, and I think my kids are gonna, they're gonna find their own path, and but I have no doubt, I don't know whether they'll be active Jews or not, but I know the values of being a Jew will definitely be with them, whatever they decide.
So you have these feelings, and yet you were considering being a religion major. So was it only because of him, or what's you?
Why?
Yeah, you being a religion. Why did you want to be a religion major? What did you hope to get out of that? What were you looking for?
Because I was sort of obsessed in high school with religion, and the fact that religions were able to have so much impact on people, civilizations, and trying to understand why and how that worked, and trying to I'm sorry to laugh. I was going to start my own religion.
Altruism?
I don't know. But it's just like, okay, so that's kind of where that came from. I was just trying to make sense of it all and figure out how to use religion in a more unifying, constructive manner than all the division.
So then this will lead us to our last space that we'll occupy, and that is, given that feeling about religion, first of all, how do you feel about it now? And number two, how do you think religion is playing itself out in the United States today? Positive, negative? Speak to that.
I think it's probably more negative, because it's become, like everything else, politicized and divisive. In some ways, probably for good reason, but in others, unfortunately, that there's a sense that if you're religious, that's kind of if you're a progressive person, and you're religious, you think of religion as a bad thing. If a religious person, they think of non-religious people as sort of being a bad thing. And obviously that's a ridiculous overgeneralization, but I think it's sort of permeated much of what we do. I mean, you just look at our current candidates, you got a deeply religious person like Joe Biden, who's, and evangelists who think Donald Trump is their savior and he could care less about religion in any way. And they think Biden is some guy who's, so anyway, it's just, I think it's a mess, as it always is, because religions have always been very, very messy. On the other hand, I mean, there are religious leaders. I mean, religion, to me, always has the capacity to be a tremendous source for good, and that's part of what I was trying to figure out as a 18-year-old, and why I was sort of trying to, how do you, how to build on that, and so I would love to, see how that, even though I'm not particularly religious myself, but as our society, right now, as you look at, I forget what the numbers are, but the number of young people who are religious is falling really steadily. And
Do you blame them?
I don't blame them. I'm not sure that's a good thing, though. Again, I say that as someone who's not religious myself, but I don't think that's necessarily a healthy thing. I don't know what's going to replace it. So I guess that's,
well, some people have suggested that politics have.
Maybe, but that's, I mean, there's a basic human need for, I used to love that Jethro Tull song about how man created, religion was created by, so, there's a basic need for religion that man has, whether, God exists or not, we need to invent him. And so something has to replace that. And hope, something that, there are things that can be a lot worse than religion. There are things a lot worse than religion that people have used to replace God. And that's not a good thing. So, I do worry about that.
In 1992, the spring of 1992, I was living in Israel, my first year of rabbi school, and Jethro Tull performed a concert outside the walls of the old city in Jerusalem. Wow. It was one of the best concerts I've ever seen. It was one of the best concerts I've ever seen. One of the songs that they sang, I don't remember which one it was, but Ian Anderson, the name Jesus came out, right? And all the religious people started booing. Right. So what did they do? I love this. What did they do? People were booing so much after that song that they sang another song with Jesus's name in it. I thought it was brilliant. Absolutely. And that's part of what you're talking about with religion, right? Some of that, there's so much potential for beauty and goodness and justice and interpersonal, but there's so much politics and ism involved in it that gets corrupted because it's human. And that gets back to your capitalist versus capitalism when I said Jews and Judaism. Right. So something might be created by people, and at the same time, they're the problem with it.
Yeah. But, well, at the end of the day, it always boils down to us, right?
Yeah.
To the people. I mean, so.
Amen.
Yeah.
And with
you
that,
read that book, by the way, about this guy, about the Christianity and racial, systemic racism.
Which one?
His name is Jones. He's a guy who grew up from the evangelical past, but he studies religion and politics and race. It's pretty, he's very progressive. I mean, he's talking about how so much of our racism is a result of, of the Christianity and evangelical in particular.
I read one like that last year. I can't remember the name of it right now. And I was in conversation pre-COVID with bringing the author up from Houston. He's a white Baptist minister who's preaching at an African-American church in the inner city of Houston. And he did the exact same thing. I have the book here. I don't remember the name. He was going to come pre-COVID. I don't know, but there's a lot of good stuff written about it for sure. Well, I think this is a good place to stop. Thank you for taking the time. Thanks for allowing Whyhakapa people to get to know you. And you need to hug Ellen for me. Hug the kids.
Happy to. Please say hello to your family as well.
And just until I see you next in person, I hope that it's sooner than later. So let me. So we'll see you all soon. Thanks for being in this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.